We're sniffing powder. But it's not what you think. I swear, we're sniffing Varget powder. And
you're smelling my fragrance right now.
No. So what you've done, it's so funny.
I've enlightened Kevin.
I've never noticed the smell. I thought, gunpowder is gunpowder is gunpowder. Not true. And we're sitting here and you go, oh, have you smelled the Varget? And I have smelled that smell before, but I didn't realize what it was.
This could almost be a cologne.
It should be a cologne.
What I like about Varget is, number one, it's like my favorite powder to load for 308.
Okay.
And when I do load it, I put everything in ammo cans, and as soon as you open that ammo can, it's just like,
the smell hits you.
Yeah. And
I've never noticed, and they all have kind of different smells. And that kind of leads us into our conversation, is we want to talk a little bit about what makes powders different, because gunpowder isn't gunpowder. They're all different and they all serve different purposes.
No, and when you're looking at gunpowder and you're talking about reloading, there is actually a list out there, and you could probably find a list of everybody's powders, but I'm sure that Hodgdon also, every brand is going to have their own. Like Hodgdon is going to have a list of, from the fastest burn rate to the slowest burn rate, because you got different types of pressures that are building and different type of bullets, case sizes, all that stuff comes into account when you talk about reloading. And then there's, the shape of the powder. They talk about ball powders and flake powders. But when you pour some of that Varget out, and then pour some.
Well, this is the HP 38, and it looks like it's
flake. That's the flake.
It's flake.
Yeah, it's a little. Yep, that's a flake powder, because this is a slow burning powder for accuracy. It's I was looking on their website, and it's fantastic because you can figure everything out when you go on Hodgdon's website. You can pick out the powder you want. So you go over here, you go into their website, and you just pull up the, what's that one called?
The HP 38.
HP 38.
So this is a pistol powder.
HP 38, you hit enter, you search it, and it says, HP 38 is a spherical powder that is great for low velocity and mid-range target loads. So 38 special, 44 special, 45 ACP. So I would probably also use this for 45 long colt, but you can look in there and you can see if it is applicable to that, because it's kind of a small powder. And what's the 45 long colt casing look like?
Well, it's
a big one.
Yeah.
It's a big fat. It's a big fat one, isn't it? So you got to have volume also. So that all goes into account.
Right. But I am very novice at this. I am just now beginning my reloading journey.
Mm-hmm.
And you say
a journey.
It is, because there's so much more I didn't know, because you can use a lot of these powders in multiple calibers. But how do you sit there and decide which one?
Well, it's really interesting, and we don't have 4227 on the table, IMR 4227, because that's one that I use for 300 blackout. 300 blackout, super popular round for reloading. Let's just kind of center around that for a minute. Okay, so 300 blackout, super popular. You can put, so many different powders in it. I don't want to say you can put almost anything in it, because you can't. You have to have, if you get too high of a fast rate burning powder, you can put a ton in that case, because it's a big case. So there's a fine line between subsonic and supersonic.
Right.
So I experiment with 4227. That's primarily what I use for subsonic loads. It's a little bigger powder. I think it's a little slower burning.
Okay.
It makes good pressure.
Right.
Because I shoot my 300 blackout out of an AR.
Right.
What does an AR run on? It runs on gas, right? So I've got to have pressures to run the gun. A lot of people, they don't, they're like, well, my 300 blackout, they say it'll run subsonic and supersonic, and it doesn't. It doesn't run with subsonic. Well, it's all about gas in that gun. And I've had to drill out, the gas port and open it up to like 110 thousandths just to make certain guns run. Because then you got barrel length,
there's a lot of different
all
factors.
These pressures, and that comes from here. So what I know is that H110, I can get higher velocities with H110. So I use H110 under my 110. Like I'll load a Hornady 110 grain VMAX bullet. But now there's this, the CFE Black.
The CFE Black. Now I saw that on their website, and that immediately, I mean, I saw CFE Black, and I was like, okay, 300 blackout, that'd be great. Talk me through the CFE Black, which is copper fouling eraser.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, the copper to me doesn't mean so much about that stuff. But you know what? What I want is something that's made specifically for a cartridge. It's a spherical propellant. It's designed expressly for the 300 AAC.
It is extremely fine.
It is tiny, so you're going to be able to put a whole lot in that case. You're going to be able to get your velocities. So when I go to they have a data center. So you can go into Hodgson's Reloading Data Center.
Okay.
And I experimented with this stuff, and I love this website. Because you can compare two powders right next to each other.
Right.
And you can just look at, one bullet with two different powders, or you can look at two different bullets with two different powders. So you picked rifle on there.
Yeah.
And then go ahead, ask your question.
So my whole thing is like, how do guys just definitively say, and how do they go about testing the load that they want? How do they get this powder and test it?
Well, I just pulled this up, okay, and I pulled it up with a 110 bullet because that's what I like to hunt hogs with.
Right.
With 110
subsonic
GMX. No, 110's a fast one. The heavier the bullet, the slower the bullet.
Right.
So I load subsonics. I like to load Hornady 190s. So I'm going to upload the data for the 110 and
190
and the 190.
Okay.
I got them both on there. Hodgson powder, update data. So I get two different loads for that, and it doesn't.
So it tells you all your pressures. It tells you your velocities.
There it is.
So what you can expect, right?
So it tells me how much of this powder I got to put in here. Now, I can use this small powder because with a giant bullet, like the 200, you put a 200 grain bullet into a 300 blackout case, and it goes way, way down in there. So we're compressing, case space.
Right.
With a 110, it's only barely going into the neck. We've got all that space still, so we can get our super velocity. We got our supersonic loads, and
well, why would they choose something else then?
Why would you? I don't know, because honestly, they made this specifically for that. So this is something that I've never used yet, but I'm certainly going to, because when I look at the pressures, it says that it's making 35,000 PSI, almost 36,000 PSI, which is plenty of pressure to run an AR.
Right.
Okay.
Because you got to get, because of the gas system, you got to get that.
Well, what does a 223 fire off at? It's about 55,000 PSI.
Right.
So a 223 is creating all that pressure. It's a gas gun. The AR-15 was made for the 223, but we've bastardized it and done it with everything else.
Right.
So somehow you got to find a way to make that gun work. So let's talk more about reloading and something that I'm really excited about too. So Hodgson, obviously, they make almost all the powders.
They really do.
They make everything I use. We don't have Trail Boss on the table. Trail Boss is huge. Trail Boss is great for cowboy action loads because we talked about the 45 Long Colt. Okay, 45 Long Colt's a huge case. The Trail Boss powder is like a donut. Okay. So it's spherical, less powder because it's still got the hole in it. If it was solid, it would be a bunch of powder, right? But it's spherical. It takes up a bunch of space. So we put it in that huge case. We can put less of it in there. And we can shoot those poof, poof cowboy loads. All right. But what it's also good for is 308 subsonics.
Okay.
Now, not everybody can shoot 308 subsonics because barrel twist is a big thing, and 308s come a lot in 1 in 12 twist.
1 in 12?
You got to have a 1 in 10 at least.
Okay.
Okay, 1 in 10 at least because you want to stabilize it. And if you're going to shoot subsonic, what are you going to have on the end of your gun?
A suppressor.
Yeah, because
I mean, why would
otherwise it sounds like a regular gun, right?
Right.
So you got to think about it. You load a 200 grain bullet over 11 grains of Trail Boss in a 308 cartridge. You're getting about 1,050 feet per second. A 200 grain bullet going 1,050. What is that comparable to? Well, it's kind of almost like a 45 ACP.
Okay.
I mean, everybody loves the power of the 45, right?
Yeah.
Now we're putting it through a rifle. We got all kinds of accuracy. We put a can on the end of it. Holy cow! It's so much fun. So I use Trail Boss because the 308 casing
Right.
You know, it's a 2-inch casing. It's a big casing. I need to fill that casing up with room, because if I'm shooting downhill and all the powder falls to the front, there's always a chance of not igniting the powder correctly.
Okay.
So we want to have that volume so that we're closer to the powder.
Especially
to the primer.
To the primer.
Yes.
Okay. So you're getting consistent loads. It's a wide variety. It's a lot to think about. Just remember, gunpowder isn't gunpowder isn't gunpowder. There is a difference, and the Hodgdon Reloading Data Center is a place to map out everything.